Okay. Hello, hello. I am Jenny DeMarco with Virginians for Safe Technology. We are a nonpartisan grassroots organization whose mission is to protect current and future Virginians' rights to safe and responsible technology. And tonight I'm here with Doris Knick. Doris is another Virginians for Safe Technology founder or founding member, and she has a bachelor's degree in elementary and early childhood education. And Doris is also a teachers to English speakers of other languages certified with 2 children of her own who she is homeschooling specifically because of the negative impacts of wireless technology. So tonight we're going to be discussing the Virginia Department of Education and the Virginia Department of Health, their healthy guidelines for wireless digital device use in schools. And I'm actually going to put healthy in quotes because we seem to think that there needs to be some major changes to these guidelines. And that's what we're going to be discussing tonight. And I am going to, I don't know, Doris, did you have anything to add before I share screen?
No, I'm just excited, and hopefully people watch the first version. And if not, we'll go through that briefly and review.
That's right. So this is part 2 of our 2-part series on these guidelines. In the first part, we talked about the harms of wireless to children and why cell phone towers do not belong on school property and what you can do about it. And tonight we're going to be talking about the urgent changes needed to these healthy guidelines that the VDOE and the VDH were tasked with making for this school year, because there are some major issues with it. And we need to make sure to protect this generation who has been exposed to wireless and radiation from the womb up. So, all right, with that, I'm going to go ahead and share screen. Hang on a second, and we will get started.
Perfect.
All right, you gotta let me know if you can see.
I can see it.
Okay.
I see it large. I don't.
Okay, hang
Gonna go to
a second.
Clicks. Okay, while you're doing that, I just want to say, just give our little disclaimer here that the material contained in this presentation is for educational purposes only, and any copyrighted material may be used herein is distributed in accordance with the Fair Use Act. Okay, moving on.
Okay.
Perfect. So just want to really quickly review how children are injured by wireless towers on school and wireless and towers on school property. First of all, we talked about their brain and what an impact this has as they absorb more radio frequency radiation deeper into their brains because they have thinner skulls and smaller heads and more conductivity in the brain tissue. Again, they're shorter arms, right? Shorter ears, which brings the devices in closer to their brain and their body, whether they're holding them in front of themselves or next to their head. The myelin sheath is not fully developed. And again, that is like nerve fibers sending impulses back and forth. And so it's like not having insulation around electrical wires. It's concerning of what that is doing, if it's causing nerve problems, sleep issues, neurological effects. And again, we talked about all of the side effects. And so autism, ADHD, childhood leukemia, brain tumors, cardiac arrest, diabetes, prenatal effects, DNA damage, headaches, and impaired growth. And so we talked last time about cell towers on school property, and we talked about a particular school in California, an elementary school where there was a school tower on the property. There's also a cell tower on San Diego State University, and there were multiple children in a dorm room in the closest vicinity to that cell tower that ended up with cancer. So there was a big cancer cluster as well as a professor at the university. We also talked about it being an uninsurable risk, and we want to encourage you guys to donate to help us get legal documents signed by a Virginia lawyer. And we've been, since our last video and now, actively working on finding someone here in Virginia. So if you know a lawyer that would be interested in taking this up, please reach out to us at virginiansforsafetech@protonmail.com. We talked about around the world and how the United States has the least amount of restrictions, right? And this is also important because radio frequency radiation has been completely ignored, and the towers and none of that is mentioned in the VDOE that we're about to show you. And there's just a huge uptick in children's health. Children are sicker now than ever before. So again, this was created because Delegate Patrick Hope introduced this bill, HB 817, along with the Committee on Communications, Technology, and Innovation. And so they were tasked with the job, VDOE, along with the Department of Health, to come up with guidelines in public guidelines. Okay, so this is exactly the wording. The Department of Education, in collaboration with the Department of Health and medical professional societies, shall develop and distribute for use by local school boards health and safety best practice guidelines for the effective integration of digital devices in public schools, no later than 2021-2022 school year. The guidelines shall be based on peer-reviewed, independently funded studies, and that's a big problem that we have that we'll talk about, and shall at a minimum, address digital device use for different age ranges and developmental levels. The amount of time spent on digital devices in the classroom, appropriate break frequency from the use of digital devices. And the one thing that they did do is they did a really good job of addressing physical positioning of digital devices in the classroom. The use of digital devices for homework, they didn't really comment on that much, and recommend teacher training to ensure best practice implementation. Wasn't a whole lot of that mentioned either. So the thing to note is that there's, we want them to hardwire technology based on the radio frequency radiation, and we want them to work on multiple things, but an adequate time spent on devices. We want them to put it in their handout in their infographic. So let's go to their health and safety guidelines. You want to go back, and where you can find that is doe.virginia.gov and the instruction. Perfect. And instructions /virtual learning. And so if you scroll down a little bit further, there we go. Perfect, Jenny. Excellent. So right there, there's the House bill, and under that, digital devices in the classroom, that's the guideline document. It's a Word document, and you have to upload it. It's about, I think, what did we say, 9 or 10 pages long. Okay. And what I want to pull up is the infographic right there. Excellent. And so just for a few minutes, let's talk about what is missing from this infographic based on what they have said they were setting out to accomplish, right? So number 2, the second one, right there on the front under developmental stages in educational use of digital devices, right there, that second one. Balance the effective and responsible use of digital devices and media developmentally from preschool through high school. So right there is the biggest problem that I have. In preschool, why do children need digital devices, right? We talked about smaller heads, smaller brains. Number 4, they mention online safety. And I'm pretty sure they're just talking about digital citizenship. They're skipping the whole online safety piece of protecting children from radio frequency radiation and the electromagnetic frequencies and the harms that it's causing. And on the other side, they talk about, this is their guidelines for students, for parents, use of digital devices at home. They tell you to set clear, consistent, realistic expectations for your children related to digital devices and media use, but they don't talk about how much of that time is going to be spent on homework on devices, right? That's another piece to this. And the second one, monitoring the use of digital devices, including how much time. So where's their recommendation of how much time should be spent on doing homework online at home? And the last one, of course, this one gets me the most fired up. Number 6, foster online safety and the use of digital services, media, and social media, considering the benefits and the risks. Okay, I know they're talking mostly about online safety in regards to websites and different things, but let's consider the benefits and the risks of these devices in general to our health and our well-being, because some of these effects are irreversible. If you go down a little bit further, you'll see they list some screen time and break frequency, and we're going to get into that in our next slide as well, but take a look at the second one there. Take breaks from the screen every 20 to 30 minutes as research suggests. So if research suggests that you shouldn't be on screens for more than 20 or 30 minutes at a time, maybe we ought to rethink what the amount of time limits that the VDOE has suggested, and we're going to get to that. It's interesting here, they're using this strategy where you rest your eyes for 15 minutes for every 2 hours of screen time. this is a really conflicting statement, and I'd like to see the research on this that, okay, use it, take breaks every 20, 30 minutes and rest your eyes for 15 minutes for every 2 hours of your screen time. Okay. All right. So number 6, monitor sleep patterns. So they're recognizing that there is a direct correlation between these devices and the brain's ability to put itself to rest, right? As well as melatonin in the body. And if they do suggest stop using digital devices 60 to 90 minutes before bedtime, I think that's great. And we all should be doing that and should encourage our children not to be on it before bed. And become educated. This is number 9. Become educated about potential negative effects of excess screen time in terms of social, emotional, and neurobiological effects and methods to mitigate them. Here they are telling you that there are negative effects to excess screen time, but yet I'm not seeing them do the things that we know they need to do in order to mitigate that problem, like hardwiring devices. So let's go back to this slide. I just wanted to briefly go over that, and you guys can find this again all. Let's go to the screen time. So, and break frequency. So when they first created the document in the beginning, before they had their town hall, which we're going to go over here in a few minutes, they didn't have any specific time mentioned in here, okay? So they go in and say that the available research is limited and varies relating to providing set time limits for device use among elementary, middle, and high school students. However, we know that there's harm from many peer-reviewed studies already in the past. And we know that right now, our kids are the evidence, right? They are the guinea pigs for this. They have been exposed to, like Jenny had said, more technology throughout, sometimes even, from birth. So I think we need to be a little more cautious in this area for sure when we compare it to other countries and even to the feedback that you'll see in just a few minutes from the people in Virginia that commented on the town hall. So they're suggesting the VDOE in combination with the Virginia Department of Health is suggesting ages 2 to 5-year-olds have 1 hour of screen time per day. So I don't know. I kind of feel like that is way too much knowing what we know now, especially for unwired devices that are being brought close to the body in ages 6 plus 2 to 3 per day for elementary school students. Remember, they have to just take a break every 20 minutes. Right? There's a reason for that. And the last one is 3 to 4 hours per day for secondary students. Okay, let's move on. Resting our eyes. Okay, so another topic I just briefly want to mention that we didn't go over, but this is a very real issue that we have, and maybe even most of us as adults too, is screen addiction. And so whether you're a parent or you have a child who likes to play video games or likes to be on the internet or watching videos online or on your computer, whatever it may be, this is becoming a real epidemic. Screen addiction is just damaging more than our health, right? You can see that it can damage relationships and our emotional health. And so as I was getting prepared for this and looking over the 8 symptoms of screen addiction, I recognized that this is a universal problem, right? Even those of us involved in this movement need to be cautious on what's happening. So you can see here preoccupation, withdrawal symptoms. I believe that's supposed to be increasing intolerance, but it says tolerance, I'm sorry. Failure to reduce or stop screen activities, loss of outside interest, lying about extent of use, continuation despite negative consequences, and using to escape adverse moods. And there is an article on screen addiction in the Journal of the International Child Neurology Association, and we'll be adding that to our website shortly within the next day or so. So next slide. So within that document, that 9-page document from the VDOE and their guidelines, on page 4 in the first paragraph, put your thinking caps on, okay? Let's go into this here. The use of electronic media in youth has been linked to an increased risk for developing symptoms of mental illness, specifically putting our youth at risk for developing anxiety and depression. I'm going to read that again, anxiety and depression, which may require professional attention. Recent research, this is not quite adding up, also demonstrated that electronic media may also have a positive impact on the mental health of youth, including those that already have a mental illness. That's just common, that doesn't seem to add up to me. We know that it's putting children at risk for developing anxiety and depression. And if a child already has a mental health impact, how is it going to give them a positive mental health impact? We know screen addiction, we know eye issues, sleep issues, all of these things. And so I looked up the article, and Article 8 is actually written by the Virginia Department of Education. This is what they're citing as a peer-reviewed independent study. And the contributing author or journal of author of this article is from the International Society of Technology and Education. So there's a big conflict of interest here, just as there is within that paragraph. So let's go on. I would love for them to explain the rationale on that. Okay, so let's discuss who was involved in creating this document. And the VDOE members that were chosen, as you'll see here, Office of Student Services, Department of Learning and Innovation, Michael Bowling. I'm not going to pronounce everyone's names because I'm sure I'll mess them up, but Office of Student Services, again, Office of STEM and Innovation for the next, Dr. Foley, Office of Student Services, Health, Physical and Driver Ed, and the last one, Office of Student Services. So it seems to me if STEM and innovation is your area of expertise or your love or your passion, that this could be a conflict of interest in them in reporting on the actual harms and findings if they were to actually use some good peer-reviewed independent studies that weren't created by the VDOE itself, right? And Office of Student Services, I was wondering what exactly does that cover? I believe that's under the umbrella of school counselors, psychologists, social workers, and school nurses. And if you've watched our video in the past, you've seen Dr. Powers explaining, and she says it so eloquently, that medical professionals are not trained on this in medical school. And to my knowledge, psychologists and social workers and school counselors are not trained on the symptoms or the signs of electromagnetic hypersensitivity or electromagnetic sensitivity in general. So if they're not trained on the signs and they're part of this, how are they doing their due diligence and doing their best job of protecting our children, right? So say the school nurse, like my daughter had mentioned to me that she was going to the school nurse quite regularly with stomach aches. Well, had the school nurse been maybe educated a little bit on the harms, that could be something of consideration, right? The Wi-Fi in the classroom, being surrounded by the laptops and Chromebooks. So that's worth noting here. That's why it gives me pause and concern that there is a conflict of interest on the VDOE members that were involved. Let's take a look at the medical professional and communities that they chose. So the first doctor that they picked is a pediatrician, and has a background in nonprofit biomedical engineering. Drawing some red flags there for us. Then there is if you scroll down a little bit, there's another doctor that graduated with science and technology background. So they, I'm sure, are a fan of technology and I'm not saying all technology is bad, but where does their interest lie? And the Virginia Commonwealth University, Joanna Pitts, she is pushing for vaccine passports and vaccines in children and contact tracing as well. So these are all things that give me great pause and concern. You have Dr. Evan Silverstein with a science and technology background as well. And none of these doctors, when I look them up and tried to look them up more on their websites, we've got focus on innovation and technology and telemedicine, appointed by Governor Werner, who's completely funded by telecom. Conflict of interest. None of these professionals, and I did call a few and leave some messages asking if they have any training in electromagnetic sensitivity or hypersensitivity, and I got no response back. So again, my concern is, are they educated on the symptoms of radio frequency radiation? So how, if they're not, how are they going to be able to make supportive advice to the board to actually truly do something to protect our children? I hope that makes sense. So this brings me to another issue that we have, and that is that quality research links. So one of the links that they use is from Children's Screen Time Action Network, and they mention that there isn't enough scientific research regarding the health effects to exposure of radio frequency from digital devices and Wi-Fi. They say it's been inconclusive and that school health officials should monitor outgoing research efforts and respond to any new screen safety standards that are established. Okay, so that's very frustrating because they are omitting the past 30 years worth of non-industry funded research and some of the absolute most important critical documents that have been created sharing and warning of these biological harms. And they're totally and completely ignoring that precautionary principle again that we talked about on the last webinar, that we must stop and look at the evidence before we continue. So they are completely ignoring the digestive independent science. And I would like to pull that one up if you don't mind. That's on grassrootsinfo.org. This site is incredible. It's also on our website. And if you look, you'll see number 2 is effects on young children. So if you click on number 2 and the brain tumors, all the things these are all 10 articles written in regards to effects on our children. And then they've even isolated it further down into the specific areas, brain tumors, and so on and so forth. So this, I think, is such an incredible resource for us as parents to share with educators so that they understand this is all the peer-reviewed studies. There's a lot here. So for them to say that it's been inconclusive, it's totally omitting the 30 years of non-industry funded research. It's also, if you want to go back to the slide for just a second. Yeah, that's great, right? You're showing all the things, all the articles that's already out there. This has been studied to death, people. Like we no longer need to continue to study it. We need to protect our children. The National Toxicology Report is there, and that shows evidence of an association with tumors in the heart, in the brain, and adrenal glands in mice being exposed to 2G and 3G cell phones. And we know that our technology is so much faster and more intense these days based on what's coming off the cell towers and what we can see from our RF readers. They've ignored the Bioinitiative report. This was started in 1990, and the research from 29 authors in 10 countries, proof of biological harms again. And then the emfscientist.org. To me, these four sites should absolutely be included, and to all of us at Virginians for Safe Technology, should be included in the peer-reviewed, independently funded studies, especially the EMF scientists, because as of January 14th of 2021, there are 225 EMF scientists from 44 nations that have signed an appeal in regards to digital technology and human rights. So these are all great sites, and you can find them on our website. So what happened, and we were not aware of it from the start. So they created the guidelines, and then they apparently did a town hall, and they allowed people to give suggestions. And so we went through the suggestions. There's 21 suggestions, and we found some of them just absolutely incredible, like the creating a screen use in schools subcommittee. That's an excellent idea, excellent way for parents' voices to be heard, right? And what we found was that these suggestions were not being listened to from the VDOE when they created these guidelines, differentiating amongst grade levels. They did go back, however, I should say that, let me be fair. They didn't have any guidelines based on age levels or amount of time used in their guidelines to begin with. And then after that, they came up with their, 2 hours for preschool and 2 to 5 year olds. However, if you look at the people's comments for Virginia, people are asking for way stricter recommendations on the guidelines, and there is nothing. We showed you the graphic. There's nothing on that infographic that is encouraging or explaining to parents how much time should be used on technology to truly educate them. Can you go back to that for just one more minute? So there was one other thing on here I think was really important. They did differentiate on grade levels. No screen time for infants and toddlers. We at Virginians for Safe Technology, we completely agree with that, especially when you look at what the other places in other countries are doing, right? And so considering making a bold move to incorporate broad screen time recommendations by grade level, addressing negative outcomes, you can prevent them. Please consider, and this is it, the EdTech Triangle. So this was an excellent suggestion, and we're going to bring that up and show you why that's something we'd like to promote as well. Limiting usage on preschool and elementary schools, set stronger limits on classroom devices. This is mentioned over and over, and we couldn't agree more. So do you want to go to the next slide? Perfect. Again, parents are recognizing, and people that commented in here are recognizing, and we appreciate each and every one of them. So if this is you and you find yourself on here, please reach out to us. We appreciate, and we're so grateful that you knew about this and you knew to comment on their town hall in regards to this bill. And so elimination of screens from elementary schools. Wouldn't that be wonderful? That's a suggestion. Do not place devices connected to Wi-Fi directly on your body. Exactly. We need to hardwire them. Cindy Eckert from Screens and Kids, provide an annual review process to ensure students continue to benefit from the latest research and mitigations moving forward. That's another great great suggestion for sure. And there's a mother here who's talking about impacting long-term negative impacts on a child's vision and overall development. A mom with a child with autism and ADHD. Our wonderful group, Center for Safer Wireless in Virginia, they made an excellent comment on here. It's number, I wrote down number 16, no. Number 13? No, I'm sorry. Where did it go? Okay, I wrote it on my notes here, but maybe it's on the next slide, but Center for Safer Wireless in Virginia said, please do not harm the children when possible with toxins that can be avoided. There it is, up right there, 18 on the next slide. I'm sorry, my notes and my slides were confused. Okay, so excellent, right? Why are we harming our children with toxins when they can be avoided? They can be avoided at least in the classrooms when possible, because some of the results are causing irreversible brain and neurological harm and caused by pediatric exposure to wireless devices. That is listed in here, right there from a doctor with the BSN, RN, MIA. Let's get her on to the video. Let's get her into the VDH, right? Virginia Department of Health. Let her be one of the people. She has knowledge on this topic and she has background, and I'm sure she has experience and cares enough to be a part of this. So number 21, parents should be able to opt out of this instruction. We completely agree. We agree with these town hall suggestions. So many of them. Okay, let's go to the next page. So these are the things that we believe need to be improved on with the health and safety guidelines. We want the Virginia Department of Education to look at what countries around the world and other US states have done to protect children. Number 2, we want the VDOE members and physicians without vested interest in technology to be a part of this creation of the guidelines. We think that's incredibly important. When there's a conflict of interest, it throws up red flags for us. Number 3, we want physicians with knowledge of electromagnetic sensitivity and electromagnetic hypersensitivity. Maybe some physicians who actually have taken some EMF health, been to the EMF health symposium, right? Physicians who are aware of this, because we know they're not being trained, like Dr. Patty Powers has told us. We also would like to see them incorporate some of the EMF scientists and RF experts. Let them be consulted or their input taken. We want them to hear the town hall suggestions. Those 21 comments should be utilized to improve upon these safety guidelines. And we definitely think that it's important that they add peer-reviewed, independently funded studies to indicate harm from RF. And these are the same ones we talked about earlier. So we know what's wrong with the document. We know what we'd like to see them do to improve upon it. And we're explaining to you why we think it's important that everyone is aware. These are our Virginians for Safe Technology best practice ideas that we think will actually protect our children. So Number one, we don't want to see cell phone towers on or near schools. We don't want kids coming home with cancer. We want to keep them 1,640 feet away or relocate them as soon as possible. Two, we want to see Ethernet plugs put in classrooms so devices are hardwired. We believe that the school should purchase Ethernet cords for all Chromebooks given to students. We want to see them hardwire all fixed devices. We want to see children only use devices connected to the Ethernet cords on top of desks, not on Wi-Fi. Do we want to play her for just a quick minute? Should we play her?
Sure. I don't know if you're going to be able to hear her.
Oh, that's what happened last time. Well, you can check out this video on our website, right? It's on our website under virginiansforsaftech.org, protect our children.
Yeah.
This young woman is very intelligent, and she speaks about how to go ahead and hardwire a Chromebook. Let's go to the next slide. The next thing we think is that the next thing we want to see happen, and we hope you're with us on this, and especially those of you that filled in the town hall, I'm sure are, we want to see teachers, staff, and students turn phones off in classrooms or not bring them at all, right? And have them on airplane mode with Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and other antennas off. I don't think necessarily students need to have cell phones in classrooms, but I understand if teachers do, but they should have them turned off. They can always call to the front office, get a hold of the secretary, send somebody down to the classroom like they used to do in the old days, or put in a phone that's actually connected in the classroom. Number 7, prohibit education on digital and wireless technology and routers in preschool and kindergarten classrooms. We feel very strongly that our youngest little ones need the most protection. And many of the parents on the town hall agreed there should not be Wi-Fi and computers in preschool and kindergarten classrooms. These kids need to play. Number 8, limit exposure to technology. And we're going to show you the EdTech Triangle that we found through the town hall comments, which were amazing. And we would like to see that there be Wi-Fi free zones in each school. So whether that be a certain hallway or certain areas, so that electromagnetically sensitive children have a safe place to go to, so that our autistic and special needs children can be protected from wireless technology. Have at least one school or more in each district without wireless technology. I bet parents would opt out of the technology if given that option. And we heard the parents in the town hall, and we believe that choices should be available, right? There should always be an option when you're putting your children at risk from wireless devices. And we know that the Waldorf schools and the more wealthier schools, they keep kids off technology. We talked about that in our last webinar. And number 10, we would like to see them use stricter RF radio frequency radiation limits in schools and be tested. Right now, there isn't anybody testing the amount of radio frequency radiation that's coming off, unless I'm missing something here in Virginia. Let us know if your school is testing. Let's take a quick look at the EdTech Triangle. We think this is pretty incredible. We put the website here, everyschool.org, the EdTech Triangle. This was created by parents and educators, and it's got current research and even book articles, listing the amount of time. So for it to be said that there isn't enough information out there, that's incorrect. This website has plenty of information, and this is an incredible triangle. I like it because of the fact that it allows for 0 to a maximum of 20 minutes. I think that was, remember when we looked back at the guidelines and it was saying every 20 minutes you should rest your eyes from technology? Well, if it's 0 to 20 minutes, that's a great option. The other thing this EdTech Triangle does, and I think is very important, is look at truly why we are utilizing the technology. So if we want the technology to be transformative, it might be for a unique outcome, something like robotics or coding or web design or digital marketing, things like that, right? And if it's supportive, it's got like digital articles not available in print, maybe, right? Maybe you're doing a research project or something, right? But when it gets down to not utilizing technology for an important purpose, you notice that it gets less and less, right? If it's restrictive, maybe it's using it for texting instead of printing, when you could simply very easily handwrite something instead of typing it up on a computer, typing up a letter or something. And then disruptive at the bottom, we want to make sure is the least amount of time used on computers. It's breeding that habitual use where the addiction piece comes in. If technology has been being given in the classrooms as an addiction, I mean, as a reward or as a behavior management tool. So this would be a wonderful graphic, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be great to see this amount of time added to the infographic? Okay, next slide. So wrapping up here, what can you do to protect teachers and staff and children? We need more parents to get involved in their local county and encourage, kind of give the pushback here. We want to fight, we want to advocate, I shouldn't say fight, we want to advocate for the state to do something, right? The VDOE to correct this guideline. But what we need in the interim is parents to get involved and start giving that pushback at their local county level so that when we go to the Virginia Department of Education, they can see that there's been concern. There has been the words getting around, so to speak, right? You can create a PTA Safe Tech committee within your school district. This is something you can do in your local area. You can educate parents, teachers, and students on the safety by sending out information, but the schools should really be giving a re-education course for teachers and staff. And there is one. Not sure if this link will, I'm going to try and click on that link. I'm sorry, it's not one I thought of in advance, but this is a great resource, wirelesseducation.org. So there is on the wirelesseducation.org, there's a specific one that's been created for school districts. I believe the creator of this, I believe is Stacey Doucette, but I could be wrong. But there is one in here that's created for classrooms and school districts. So why not utilize some of this to re-educate teachers and staff? And we want to see devices be required to be placed on desks and not laps. And we like to see good graphics like the ones we showed you in schools to help remind everyone to use technology safely. Okay, next slide. So some technology best practices recommended by expert groups. There are other commissions and other places that are making waves. And there's a great list. We've shared this already, the best practices for screens and radiation, EHT's checklist for schools. Actually, we didn't share that, but that's something that we can come back to. So it's something worth sharing. We can add that to our website if it's not there already. So that about wraps it up. I hope you feel educated on why the VDOE document needs some major adjustments and are encouraged to take action. Jenny, do you want me to keep talking?
I'm going to go ahead. No, hang on a second. I'm going to go ahead and stop share. And we know that was a lot of information. But the thing is, that's what I was going to say. There is so much more to be said about all of this. But we really just want the message to get across that this is something that we should all be educated on. And it is something that we should at least express to our educators, to our school boards, to our PTA, to other parents, that it's something, I just saw a recent news clip about this, and, you don't want this to be like cigarettes where 20 years down the road, you're looking back and you're saying, I can't believe that we actually did that. And we let ourselves get swept up in this without even questioning whether or not this is something that's harmful. And we're telling you right now, this is like cigarettes. Okay, it's actually been classified as a carcinogen by the World Health Organization. It's that bad. And so, but the thing is, it is invisible. It's hard to see. You can't smell it. You can't taste it. You can't touch it. And so people just automatically think it's not there. And this must be just something that we're making up. And the effects are often cumulative. And like Doris had mentioned, many health professionals and school nurses and education professionals are not educated on the harms of wireless and what the symptoms look like. So we won't even know when children are being harmed, because that's not going to be recognized as something that that's causing those symptoms. And so the more that we start to talk about this, the more that we tell people about it, the better off we're going to be, and more importantly, the better off our children are going to be. So I just wanted to get that in there. The other thing I wanted to mention was, when you were talking about Wi-Fi in the classrooms, many of these schools now are giving students, each student, some sort of wireless device. And picture this. I know this is old school, and Doris and I have talked about this, but we had wired computer stations in our classrooms when we went to school. And I know, Doris, you said when you taught, you had wired stations. Okay, so what would be so hard about just keeping those wires there and having the students, when they came into the classroom, just plug into the wires, and having a set of glasses to shield their eyes from the blue light coming off of and making sure that it's not on their laps and it's not near their body and there's a certain distance away. What would be so hard about that? We used to do it with the old school computers, but now it just so happens that these are more mobile. So you take your mobile device and you set it in front of you and you hook up the wire. So it's not like this is something that's out of the question, or, something that would be too expensive or too hard. It's actually already all there. They're just not using it. So I just wanted to point that out, because a lot of times it's like, well, that's just extra money and it's too hard and all the, the regular excuses. And it's really not. This is something that we could be doing tomorrow if they really wanted to protect our children.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree.
I know you do. So.
Yes. Well, and we want you to know that we're working on an email that you can send to your school board. We just want to dot some I's and cross some T's, that, and make sure that looks excellent before we share that out, because that's something else you can do to help us get the word out. Share the video, donate again to help us retain a lawyer here specifically for Virginia, and stay tuned for an email to send to your school board.
Yep. And if you have any questions, you can always email us at virginiansforsafetech@protonmail.com. And please visit our website at virginiansforsafetech.org. And we have a section there specifically for Protect Our Children. So, all right. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. Good night.